Welcome back to Kingdom and Company. My name is Justin Craig, and I have Art Gallegos with me today. And he is the founder of an organization called Level Up, which networks people all over the Atlanta area from all different industries. Let's dive into the interview. Art Gallegos, what a pleasure to have you here today. You're doing so much in the community. You're a business leader. You're in real estate. You connect people through Level Up, and I want to get into Level Up here in just a minute. But there's also your role with Secretary Doug Collins and how that influences and all that you're doing with Level Up. Tell us first about your story. As a 12th child in the family, you're growing up in a large household, right? How does that shape your perspective and leadership in the community?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much, for honoring me and having me be invited. When you mentioned 12th child, wow, that's pretty scary, But first thing people ask me, did you guys all live in the same household? Well, no. Some of my brothers were much older at that time, and then they moved on, got married, and moved. But yes, that's true. I am the 12th child. I have 7 sisters, 4 brothers. A few of them are in ministry, and as well my dad, that just recently passed away about a year and a half ago, was also a pastor for 55 years. So,
wow.
Yes.
55 years. Incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then had such a large family. I would imagine you had to learn a lot about team dynamics and how to do conflict resolution in that family. And that's probably serving you now today, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what is Level Up? Tell us what that is.
Well, Level Up is a most recent, company or organization that we have built. A friend of mine, Monica Romero Schultz, and myself, we've created this organization where it basically is the umbrella of a lot of the things that I'm involved or that we collaborate and do partnerships. And this basically Level Up is an organization that covers things like networking, connecting other folks, connecting businesses, doing meet and greets, doing, a lot of the businesses come to a business to get connected and to grow their businesses. We do fashion shows, we do business orientation, we do also events and galleries, also in business like restaurants where people come and enjoy a meal, but also get connected with other folks in business. Wow. We also do like workshops. I know we have one coming up next month. We're going to be doing a workshop of people, the kind of people that are involved in real estate, lending, and so forth. Just business. Personally, I do consulting and mentoring for small businesses, how they grow. I also do mentoring and consulting for people in business. Believe it or not, what to wear, how, get them photography, help them build their brand. I don't do it directly, but I coordinate everything where I can just coordinate that whole thing. Like, I'll get them the office, the photographers, videographers. I even teach them how to sit, what to wear, what not to wear, what earrings not to wear. Yeah. And with men, a lot of them have called me and said, hey, I'm going to a banquet, or I'm going to a wedding, I'm thinking of wearing this, or I'm going to a presentation. And I do that as well. And with business, Level Up is really now the umbrella of the business side that I'm very heavily involved now.
Yeah. So, if I were to give a definition to it, or maybe even a mission statement to it, it's to connect people from all different businesses and industries.
Correct.
To add value to their own personal business.
Correct. Yeah, connecting folks, in all areas, primarily in business, connecting, networking, growth, empowerment, also building relationships, and really just getting out there and connecting and making your brand known.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what you do with Doug and how that helps serve Level Up.
Well, Doug Collins, if that's who you're referring to, Congressman Doug Collins. Now he is the Secretary of the Veterans Affairs for the United States, which is an honor, and I'm very happy that he's in that position. I think he's the ideal person. Several years ago, I believe about 6 years ago, I was asked to join him at the State of the Union. Made history, local news, and so forth. And I had the blessing to be up in Washington, go to the actual State of the Union at that time. The first term, President Trump, and was there with a lot of very important people. Was up there for like 3-4 days. Also got to visit and, be in the White House in my lifetime now about 3 times. But that was my first time there, and it was a blessing to be able to just be invited and speak on behalf, not just about my community, the Latino community, how conservative or where they stand on the different policies in government, but also to just have the honor to be a faith person, to be invited to this great event.
Wow. You mentioned faith. So
Yes.
I guess faith influences a lot of what you do and why you're trying to serve so many business leaders, not just political, but business and any industry, almost like a LinkedIn here in the state of Georgia. You're a networker and you're trying to add value, help them further their business.
Yes.
So, you founded the LCO, the Latinos Conservative Organization.
Yes, sir.
What inspired you to found that? And then what's its primary mission in Gainesville?
Well, LCO was created about 7.5 years ago, where we just got together, two guys thinking, hey, how can we create something so we can invite more people that believe the way we do in the conservative policy and the conservative movement. And we see all these groups, but we don't really see nobody heading it, nobody leading it, and nobody creating it. So it just started like a meeting, and then it went from 2, then went to 10, and then it started growing. Then I was invited to speak different places till I did some National Day of Prayers. Got invited to a couple of churches to speak about the Latino. How do we reach them? How do we reach them in the political side? Where how do we get them involved in the movement or into the party? Per se. And I started meeting with business owners, Hispanic pastors, a lot of churches, and because I was not in ministry directly, like being a pastor, you have members and so forth. I was able to be invited and speak just on different issues, community, what affects the Latino and Hispanic community, not just in faith, but also in policies, in government, in schools, and in workforce, in the work environment. So Latino was created, just because we wanted to make sure that we could form a group of people that were concerned, that say, okay, what can we do to better and get people to know the truth? And it's sort of like church, We want people to know the truth, so we need to speak about the truth.
Yeah. Well, you're involved in civic and political life, and you help the homeless community, and especially in Hall County, is that right?
Correct.
What drives your passion and your public service towards the community? Like, why do you do what you do? What's your why?
There's a quote that they've noted on many occasions, when they've done interviews with me. I have a quote that says, "I love what I do and I do what I love." But I would love to add something to that. Is I wouldn't be able to do all those things if I didn't not believe in God, and also if my faith was not the base of everything that I do. The platforms I've been able to have the blessing and honor to, be, step into platforms, stand behind podiums and microphones, and have the blessing to have people listen to me. And I think that none of that could happen or would happen if I did not put my full dependency in God.
Yeah, so it's your faith. Well, amazing. Well, you've reached a lot of recognition now. You've got state and national leaders, and they know you. You've even been on some TV stations, I think Fox News, BBC, Univision. How do you handle being a public figure and representative voice for Latinos, but also your political aspirations as well?
Yes. Well, politics have always kind of been involved in everything that I do. There was a point in my life where I didn't want to get too involved in the politics, and I even reached out to my father at that time when he was alive, and one of my 5 mentors, and I told him, basically, I said, Dad, I don't want to be recognized as that religious or that person of faith being involved in politics or that political preacher kind of thing. And, he told me something that really stuck to this day. He says, Art, it's easy. The day that you don't do anything, it's the day that people are not going to be talking about anything you're doing. But it's easy. If you want to give it up, you give it up. Because if you don't do it, and God has located you in places so you can be the voice, then he'll just choose someone else to do it, and that opened up my eyes, opened up my heart to say, there's a calling besides just ministry. There's a calling for me to speak to others, to bring the truth, not just in the word, but also to bring truth in policies, truth in business, and represent our Latino community, not only in my county, in my city, and not only in my state of Georgia, but also nationally. So I've been blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud you for that, and you're very strategic with how you place your faith and how you talk about your faith, and I love that you put in the biblical leadership principles and insert those, and then tie them back to the Bible. You're helping them know where it comes from. That's a beautiful thing. So your work often bridges the law enforcement and civil, the gap between law enforcement and the Latino community. What's been the most impactful part of that whole effort, connecting those two things?
There's a lot of law enforcement in my family, and I'm a true leader. I back the blue, like they say. But my contribution or my part has been always to be involved when there is some type of issue where there's either a Latino, Hispanic involved, whether there's a crime or something has been going on. Most recently, there was a young girl in the city of Gainesville, Georgia, Hall County, that I was asked to be part of a coalition or a committee as a leader, Hispanic leader, especially like in my backyard, Gainesville, Georgia. And I was part with a lot of other folks really promoting, advocating, bringing awareness of her disappearance and the way she disappeared. And she was found, 2 months later. And, I was just being a part of what I do, bringing awareness, working with churches, working with, Hispanic and Latino businesses in that city. So now in the state, and that was recognized as well with all my other work that I've done in that city and in the state of Georgia. My leadership, yes.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that was heartbreaking to be involved in that case and to hear, she being missing for 2 months, probably very challenging. And so there's Level Up and all that you're doing to help network and bring all of these industries together. Tell me your future hopes and dreams as it relates to political aspirations or what you want for Level Up. How do you want to add value long term?
Well, we'll start with Level Up. Level Up, is really thriving right now. We're having so much success. We're having so much connection, so much networking. I've said it all my life. Basically, there's a lot of people that can communicate, but not everybody can connect. And that really applies in life. That applies in ministry. That applies in business. That applies in everything that you do, because you have to find that edge. You have to find what connects you to that person. We are, humans that we're very social. We need to be social. We need to be in that environment with people. We're people. So I think I've been blessed to be able to not only connect myself with other folks, but have other folks connect with themselves through business, through relations, through resources. And Level Up, that's what brings people together with a lot of different purposes, with a lot of different goals. But I think that one of the biggest goals that we have is to really empower, grow, and connect folks in any area that they're working in.
Empower, grow, and resources that
Yes.
they need. Sharing of resources. I love it. So this is how you're adding value to people everywhere. You spoke to me about a legacy of service and how you'd like to be known in that regard. Talk about that.
These days now that I go back and think of at least my 5 years, going back to these 5 years where, I think to myself that, I lost my mother about 4 years ago. She was my biggest supporter, my biggest cheerleader, my rock, after God, of course. And then having my daughter, struggle through mental health several years ago, that I almost lost her in a hospital, you can imagine. And then going through a very harsh, about 3.5 years, divorce. And then 7 days later, you're notified, not only with pain in your body, but you go to the emergency room, and then you come to find out, like, you can't leave. You go in there and you don't leave, and come to find out that, I have to have surgery. They detect, something, and it happens to be cancer, colon cancer, stage 3. Wow. Go through chemo for about half a year by myself, but always trusting God. But it was one of those difficult times in my life where I knew that my time was not up. It was going to be a difficult process, and I go back to something that I used to, remember someone saying, the same God that allows you to go through the storm or through the desert is the same God that's going to take you out of that situation, And for me, now being a colon cancer survivor and being asked to be the Hispanic ambassador for the Colon Cancer Society in Hall County, I now have even a bigger purpose of a lot of things that I do. So when you ask me the political things and the many titles and the many areas that I work and that I'm involved, for me, the biggest joy and the biggest reason that I do what I do and that I do what I love and I love what I do is because I believe that I'm here, in earth for a purpose, and that is to serve. That is the biggest title I can have, just to be called a child of God, a servant, and I do that in all the areas that I'm involved in, whether it be politics, whether it be community engagement, whether it be civic, whether it be in business, whether it be in everything, even in fashion shows. We do, there's purpose always behind everything we do.
And to point people to God, right? You're serving them and being known for your service, and it sounds like as a child of God, you want them to have the same relationship with God that you
Correct.
as a result of interacting with Art Gallegos.
Correct. I'm just blessed to be able to do what I do, partner up with so many different people, bring a lot of resources that I've been able to, be connected to, or even work, because I've worked for so many different, nonprofit organizations, and then to be able to, connect folks to those resources, it's just very, very joyful.
Well, what's the future for Level Up, and where do you want to go with it?
Well, Level Up, is thriving right now. We hope to even grow even bigger, to create more workshops, more training. We're going to have conferences. We actually have a meeting with someone today to acquire and investigate on how we can acquire a building.
Wow.
In the sense of, so we can have workshops, we can have training, whether it be business, whether it be mentoring, whether it be consulting. Bring also people, speakers, to join Level Up. Right now we're working with lawyers, attorneys, real estate people, restaurant owners, just business in the real estate, but also in just in general, business in general, bringing them together to not just market their brand, but market themselves, help them how to grow and lead, how to make the connections. And I'll say this again, and I hope somebody's listening really good, because, I've learned that in the past 5 years is this, that everyone can communicate, but not everybody can connect. And I go back, that applies to all the areas in our lives. The only way we are going to be able to connect with folks is really reaching out to them, servicing them, bringing the resources, and making something where people can come and get these resources, whether it be like, workshops, trainings, networking events. I've been doing so many through Level Up. We're doing so many network events, business after hours, networking, come and meet, networking / meet and greet. And there are a lot of people are not only just coming and meeting for, business, but friendship, and I tell people like, hey, don't blame me if you find your next wife, girlfriend, fiance, but we've had, live testimonies of, just most recently one that we did, a gentleman wasn't too eager to going because his wife wanted to go to the event, and when he showed up and he had a good time, at the end of the night he comes and says, hey man, thank you for doing what you're doing, because you don't know that, this guy, the guy with he called him the cowboy. Yeah. He says, I just talked to him. He says he has a company of cranes, and I'm gonna meet with him tomorrow. A few days later, his wife calls me and says, Art, we love it. He just made a contract with them without knowing. So I have another saying, always expect the unexpected. Okay. But I would love, and I love to add this, always expect the unexpected from God.
From God. Yeah.
Because it's a true quote.
Yeah, because it's God's hand in your life. They may not identify it as God's hand.
Of course.
Right? It's unexpected. They call it serendipitous or luck.
Correct. Many people have said, Art, you do this. We see you one day you're at the Capitol, speaking at the Capitol up there in Georgia, and then later on we see you with the veterans, feeding the homeless, or we see you, with Keep Hall Beautiful, an organization down up in Hall County, where you go and you service and you gather so many people to do city cleanups or feed the homeless, or with restaurants. And my involvement is just always has been about service, serving others. And the day that I'm gone from this earth, I want people to know that I did what I love, and I love what I did. And the whole thing has to rely on servicing others.
Yeah. When you say I want to be known as a leader, not an advocate, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I think for me, the concept of advocate is you're advocating for a certain particular thing. Me, the way I look at it is, when I am a community leader, I'm leading people to greater things, to a variety of issues. I have met people where they're coming in to get mentorship with me, and they're coming to talk about business, and all of a sudden I'm having to talk about growth on a different area, his family or his church or something different. So for me, I am more than just an advocating for something. I'm leading people. I am leading myself, and through that, God is leading us through this path, and I get to lead others to growth, empowerment, business, and not just in the political side too, bringing people and bringing truth policies that they can understand, especially in this day and age, how so many people are so confused. The truth is the truth. You cannot change that. So.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a myriad of different political chairs that you could hold to accomplish your life's goal, where you want things to go in your life. But can you talk about where you'd like to go politically, where you're thinking the direction leads right now?
I've been actually asked to run. About 2 years ago, I threw my name in the hat to run for city council. At that time, I was outside of the ward by the time the qualifications came, but I was already working on campaign, doing some interviews. At this point in my life, I had a lot in the past 3.5, 4 years that I've encountered where I said, it's not in my time, it's in God's timing. Mm-hmm. I'm not in a rush to get a lead role or to get a leadership role. I think I have that now, but I think that God is going to set us in a place like he sat Daniel and a lot of different folks in the Bible, to be the voice and to be that conscious of saying, hey, you know what, not only represent my community, when I refer to my community, the Latino and Hispanic community, but also to lead others and advocate and promote and speak truth in government. We need people with integrity. We need people that can stand up when it's time to stand up, speak when it's time to speak, and I think that the time will come. So if you're asking me, do I have aspirations, do I have goals in the political arena? I think so. I think God is forming and creating a path, and the most recently honor that I had by, Governor Brian Kemp to be recognized and to be the first Latino Hispanic to receive an accommodation from this governor, it speaks for itself. Yeah, it speaks for my leadership, speaks for my truth, it speaks for my heart. It speaks that, we've worked the past 12, 13 years in a leadership role in the state of Georgia, in the city of Gainesville, and Hall County, and now in Gwinnett and other counties. So I think the time will come where I'm going to be able not only to serve God, but to serve God in a different position, and for me to be able to be blessed in that manner.
Yeah. Well, Art Gallegos, such a pleasure. In the political arena, a business leader, as well as an advocate for the homeless. On and on we could go. Just truly a pleasure. All the ways in which you're adding value to the community, helping others, and then wanting to be known for service, all to connect people to the heart of God. An honor to have you here today. Anything final that you'd like to share?
No, I just know that, even through everything that I've gone through, I was talking to someone today and I said, sometimes, never go back to the place where you've been hurt or the person you've been hurt. But I think more than that is I have come to realize that in my lifetime, every platform that I have stepped or every place where I've been, I would love for people to know that the place that they're standing today is not their final destination. There's a bigger place, there's bigger goals, there's bigger things in life to do. And as a survivor, you're not just surviving, a sickness, let's just say, because I've declared myself healed. But I've also know that, when you put your heart in things, when you're passionate, it's because there's something bigger. And I think that there's bigger things to come. Stay tuned. We have a lot of events and we have a lot of things coming, and I am blessed to be surrounded with great people, and I'm blessed to be able to do what I do, and connecting folks to grow in all areas of their lives.
Yeah. Well, we will continue to pray for Level Up and its advancement and influence in the community. And you're right, everybody is eternal. Everybody spends forever somewhere. And so what is that eternal being talking to us about with our purpose? and why He's put us here on this earth. So you are absolutely a purpose man and helping people connect to their purpose. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much
God
for the
bless you.
invitation. Thank you.